I'm Steve Gilman, and this is Brand Story, where we help you build stronger, more sustainable brands by sharing insightful conversations with brand leaders, marketers, and professional storytellers. My guest today is Peter Santana.
Life is much more about the process than the finished product. And sometimes I would try and skip through the process as quick as possible to get to the finished product.
Yeah.
And I feel like early on in my career, especially, I missed out on the value of embracing the process.
Peter is currently the president of Legacy Builders and also serves as COO at Stoneburner. He and I worked together during his time as CFO at DuPont Community Credit Union, where he built a reputation as someone grounded in values, and he authentically cared about the people around him. Then he made a move that I think surprised some people. He left the CFO role to work with Mission Aviation Fellowship, an organization flying into some of the most remote places in the world to deliver access to medical care, essential services, and human connection where roads simply don't reach. Hi, Peter. Welcome to Brand Story.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Steve.
Yeah, man. I love talking to you, and I thought this would make such an interesting episode because your journey is, not the usual path that people take, and I think it's really inspiring. So, when you and I worked together at DuPont Community Credit Union, you're in a really stable C-suite leadership position. And
Right.
Not a whole lot of people, I think it's really tempting for people once they get to that level to be like, well, I'm staying because that's
Sure.
the top. But, you made a big leap to go to Mission Aviation. What was happening and what drove you to that decision?
Interesting question. I mean, so my faith has always been the foundation of my life. And so as I ponder things from kind of an eternal perspective, like you said, I was like, okay, I've kind of had, made it, quote unquote. And I could easily foresee the next 25 years of my career. And, it's like kind of going to be set. And, I just had this kind of deep unsettled feeling about that, which was quite surprising because that had kind of been like the plan the whole time.
Right.
As I was just a hungry, kid and teenager, I was always starting businesses and things like that and selling real estate, and then kind of got into the banking world, but I always had this kind of hunger to have, financial success and kind of what that affords,
right?
What that would afford me. And so to get to a place where I kind of had reached that level and then not be satisfied with it was like I said, just kind of this unsettling feeling. And so that's when I kind of just started reaching out to my network because I was like, okay, I want to continue to be challenged and do really meaningful work. And the financial success became a total secondary thing then in my mind. And so I originally reached out to Mission Aviation Fellowship to help on kind of the corporate side where, the home office, so to speak, in the US. And they, said, we're really looking for people with leadership experience to be in our overseas context. And so my wife and I were like, yeah, sure. Let's look at that. And then, it's with most big things you do in life, if you knew what the end was
right
at the beginning, you wouldn't do it. And so it kind of was one of those situations like, well, we knew what the next thing was. So it's like, well, that's not that big of a deal. Let's just do the next thing. And then before you know it, you're living in a remote part of the world, in the tropics and flying airplanes into places that there should not be airplanes flying into regularly. So
that's an amazing arc. It's an amazing journey. And it just fascinates me because I think a lot of people think of doing things like that. And you've been a pilot for years, right? You were a pilot well before that.
Right.
But that's no easy puddle jumping pilot behavior there. That is for real jungle flying, right?
Yeah. I mean, I always, as my wife says, I like to do life on hard mode. If there's an easy way to do it, I'll figure out a more difficult way to do it. So, it very, very challenging. It tested your skill every day, weather, and mountainous conditions, short, steep runways or unimproved, not paved, all that kind of stuff. So, it's kind of the hard mode of flying airplanes. But I always just have just an attraction to it. Just if there's something hard like that gets me excited.
That's
So
pretty cool. That's a great quality. And also, it's like very brave and very adventurous of you to go do that. And then also really meaningful. So looking back
so
now that you're back in the US and
yeah.
your career's continuing in a different direction, what did that decision reveal to you about who you are?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of, in tough situations, as when we go through hard things in life, that's
Yeah,
where kind of every part of us comes out, kind of the things that we look to and admire about ourselves, and the things that we look at ourselves and say, oh, that could be better.
yeah,
Or what could be different about this for it to serve me better is maybe a better way to say that. And
yeah,
a big part of that is like everything I do, like I just go fully invested into. And I found that I was raising, and still am raising three boys, and that my work investment needed to reduce in order for me to increase my investment into their lives.
sure, I get that.
And that was exposed over there in Aurora because it was a 24-hour. I was in Southeast Asia, so the exact opposite, basically, time zone of the U.S.
Right.
But a lot of my interactions were with people in the U.S. and other parts of the world,
Wow.
and so it could be really just like a 24-hour cycle, and I had to really intentionally kind of disengage from that in order to invest in some of the other really meaningful things that I want to be um, part of my life. And that it revealed that about me. It also I lost a really close friend there in an aircraft accident, and it also just kind of put in perspective. She had a wildly successful career, and in the military, private sector, and security. And then she did the same thing I did. She kind of said, "Okay, that's good, but there's something else for me." And she moved to Indonesia and flew airplanes. And she was tragically killed in an accident there. But it really put in perspective for me that like what her impact was able to have on the world is people after she died, people are kind of coming out of the woodwork saying what an impact she had
Yeah.
on their lives. And it wasn't about, oh, she was such an amazing, information security person. She was such a caring, thoughtful person who invested heavily in my life with no expectation of return.
Right.
And so her story really deeply impacted me because then I just became much more single-minded about any businesses or things that I get involved with in the past. Like if there's not an opportunity to deeply invest in others with no expectation of return, then like I didn't really want to be a part of it because it's just the long story impact of that is going to be much more meaningful to me than short term kind of financial benefits or kind of getting deals done. And so that, those couple of things I would say are probably the two big takeaways we
Yeah.
had from our 5-year journey over there.
Man, I bet that's so interesting because I bet that's not what you thought you would go learn. And
Right.
and what
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
what a place to discover it, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
that's a really, really cool thing. Um, is there any moments, I'm sure there's a million, but is there any moments you can share from that experience that really stay with you? Like on a day-to-day basis that you kind of use as a touchstone for, because those are two very different worlds to where you are now.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say, the thing that stays with me all the time, as I was interacting with people there, I mean, these are people that have, compared to the opportunities we have in the U.S.,
Yeah.
virtually nothing, no opportunity for them in their lives. They're living in these remote parts of the world where there's no education systems, there's no healthcare systems, very little access even to, even if you were totally self-motivated individual, things like the internet and which is actually growing rapidly now into that part of the world. But very limited access even at that. And so, and there were people that were just completely full of joy. by and large, the people I would interact with, just so thankful for, the airplane coming in and delivering some building materials for a church project or things like that, and just like um, deeply grateful. And so I think about that a lot because of all the opportunity that is here. And still, I'm still a human being, unfortunately. And so I'm still susceptible to being ungrateful
Right.
and short-sighted and all these things, and get frustrated by things that are really not that big a deal. And so that's a daily reminder I have. It's like, yeah, this is really not that big a deal. Really not that big a deal. And I could say that about virtually everything that goes on in my day.
Right.
It's like, is it really that big a deal? No. Like,
Yeah.
there's not a life and death situation here. Like, it's okay. We're gonna get over this. We'll figure it out. And so I think that's kind of the overriding, just like starting from a place of like just really grateful for being alive in where the Lord's placed me in the world. And that really, when you take a step back out of it, there's not much that I'm going to encounter during the day that's really going to have that big of an impact on my life. And so I need to put everything in its proper place, and just be thankful for the opportunities and the challenges that are going to face me.
Man, I think that's one of the gifts of travel. And I think,
Yeah.
you traveled on steroids. That's more than travel. That's,
Right. Yeah.
transporting your life and your daily experience.
Mhm.
But I think that's one of the things that's so important about travel is the perspective it gives you about how lucky you
Yeah.
truly are, and having your day ruined by a tweet doesn't really quite seem, like
That's right. That's
something
right.
any of us should have happen. And
Right.
yet, it's hard to keep perspective when you're back in comfy America, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, it is. It is hard. I had an experience this week where one of our customers, it had some trouble paying in the past and things like that, and so I had to remove his credit line.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we're going to go to cash basis now for a while, but so we kind of figured this out. And he said, well, if you're going to do that, then I'm going to go elsewhere. And like, in the past, I would have had like a pretty strong reaction to that, to like, it's like, oh, what is he saying about me personally? All these kind of identity questions
Yeah,
come up,
right.
like,
Like, am I a bad
and like
person?
try
Well,
and figure out a way to like make it better immediately and stuff. And yeah, this week I was like, okay,
that's
like, dude, and it really, like, and it's not just I'm like casting aside those thoughts or whatever. It's like there's something that's shifted inside of me where it's like that's not that impactful on me anymore.
yeah.
And it's like there's going to be other people, there's going to be opportunities, and I feel no ill will to them. It's like, yeah, okay,
Yeah. And
I
they
that's a free country, and
yeah, and they may
you
turn
know,
it around. It's really interesting how much, if we are able, and it's a constant struggle, I think, for everyone, but maybe those that practice it more have an easier time. The more you can control your reaction and your perspective, the happier you are.
absolutely,
Because
yeah,
we just
yeah,
react to everything, like you were saying, internally and externally. In that
yeah,
situation, you could get mad, but you could also feel bad about yourself. And if you don't have
right,
any perspective, it's just you're on this like yo-yo of reaction all the time.
yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I tell my boys all the time, there's only two things in life that we can control: our attitude and our effort.
Yeah.
Everything else is going to be outside of what we can do. How people respond to things, the opportunities that come our way or don't come our way. We can't control any of that. We
Right.
can't control how another person responds in any situation, but we can control our attitude and the effort that we put in. And then everything else we just got to let go of and
Yeah.
be okay with. And it's easy to say, hard to do,
Right.
but we talk about it a lot. A lot of opportunities to practice.
Yeah, I think endless opportunities to practice, and you're never going to get it right, but man, is it important to like just keep working on that perspective, because I really think
Yep.
that's sort of the line between being at peace and not being at peace a lot of times, is
Mhm.
just being able to like have reactions that are reasonable to the situation and not to
That's
spin
right.
off at every little thing that challenges you. There's
Mhm.
there's an aspect of what you did, and you mentioned this a few minutes ago, that I really wanted to just dig into just a teeny bit more. I think I just find it so fascinating. You're at the CFO level, the definition of success And it's not like you
Mm.
went off to do this mission aviation thing and then you just immediately were this enlightened person just trying to help others. You started to
Mhm.
take on a lot more responsibility and a lot more, and you're all of a sudden you're working, night and day. And I always just find it so interesting how we do this to ourselves. Well, like our ambition gets in front of our mindfulness, or
Mhm.
it's a really difficult balance, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's this like deep part of me that wants to be um, use all the gifts and talents I have,
Yeah.
in the world. And there's also this overarching sense of I have to be completely me in order to be able to be impactful.
Right.
And if I'm kind of just tapping into some parts of me and kind of like wearing those parts out and not fully living into the rest of me, then I'm not going to be as impactful. And so to be whole um, is to be able to be my most impactful, even though that may look differently to me than I want it to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it
But it's
does.
like it might not have all the accolades or whatever associated with it, but it's relationships that will be more impactful, and ultimately that's what really matters in the long term.
Yeah. I think I've talked to a few guests about sort of that line between, I don't know, high performance or achieving things and
Hmm.
purpose,
Yeah,
and trying to align your purpose and what you feel with, you know, how you're performing or why you're performing or why you're trying to
yeah,
reach a goal. How do you, now that you've had that experience in your back, how are you navigating that?
yeah. Probably day to day, I would say, but
I'm right there with you.
yeah, yeah. But it's like I do have I would say I have a much clearer picture of where I can add the most value, I
Yeah.
would say, to people. And so that's been really helpful. And I also know that I'm going to always have a big list of things I'd love to do or be a part of.
Right.
And I'd say I have much more acceptance of um, I'll see what I can get to, but I probably won't get all of these things done in this lifetime, and that's okay.
It's
So
hard to
but
accept at certain parts of your
it
life,
is.
but it is okay.
Yeah, yeah. I do reject the. I had a friend I was talking to one day, and he said, "Well, by the time you're like 35 to 40, like you kind of your career is going to be what it's going to be by that point, and like the things that you are going to be a part of or not going to be part of are very well defined. And I kind of like wholly reject that. Like I you know
I'm with you.
I could see myself in 10 years doing something completely different,
Yeah.
and not kind of settling for, okay, well, I guess this is the lot in life that I have. And again, it goes back to the attitude and effort thing. Like if I want to continue to learn and grow and expand myself, then I believe that I can. And so I don't want to limit. And I do find a lot of people would agree with him. They
Yeah.
kind of fall into that, like, okay, by 40, it's just kind of like this is what it's going to be. And case in point, I worked with a good friend of mine there. He retired from over in Indonesia. He retired from the military at 50, couple years old, and then packed up and moved to Southeast Asia and flew airplanes
Right.
there. Like never. And so it's like he broke the mold of, well, it's kind of said and done by the time you're 40. And so yeah, I do hope that, and I know that our story it has uh, inspired some people to think differently about that. Like, oh, I didn't think I'd be able to ever do
Yeah.
something like that, and then I see you guys do it at your ages. Like, maybe I can. And so yeah, I think that's been a cool, and I certainly know no part of that was our doing, but just what was going on in their life. But it's cool to see people um, still believe in potential of what could be
Yeah.
in their lives.
I mean, thank goodness. Like I think I've heard that mindset a bunch too. Of like, I've also heard the thing of like your 30s are for this, your 40s are for this, da da da.
Right.
I wholly reject all of those schemas
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they're just such a trap. One of the reasons that I
Yeah.
love owning, my own business and building this with
Yeah.
people that I care about is that we do have freedom And that
Hmm.
because of what we do, we end up working. What I feel like I get to do is be a visitor in all these other worlds.
Mm.
Like I get to
That's cool.
all of
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
sudden learn a completely new industry and the
Yeah. Yeah.
challenges and what's behind it. We're working with a manufacturing client now, and I'm just having a blast.
Yeah.
And I didn't ever think I would have to learn all this stuff about manufacturing, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like, so when
Right.
you work in different sectors, even a lot of agencies put themselves in these like really tight, niches where you're just like, we only
Yeah.
do this. How boring,
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah.
Like I think growth can go all the way from packing it up and going over to Indonesia and flying into like crazy, unimproved airstrips, all the way to just being curious.
Hmm.
Like if you're done in your 40s, man, I feel bad.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
There's a lot to be interested and learn.
Yeah. 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 Especially now with just in the way the kind of the leaps that AI is taking.
Yeah.
I mean, the access to be able to learn and grow on things is just getting exponentially more and more all the time, and that's really exciting for me
Isn't it?
because it's like, hey, this stuff that I never thought I could maybe learn about, like, there's access now. Like
Yeah.
if I want to, I could.
Oh, yeah. I
Um,
mean, if you want to polish up your skills in almost any area, if you have the time, the energy, and the desire, you actually can now,
hmm.
which is super cool, you know?
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
what would you say to anyone that, like, people do a kind of work, people will get stuck doing kinds of work. Like, this always makes me sad when someone's doing a kind of work that doesn't feed them in any way, you
Hmm.
know? Like, the one
Yep.
thing I really admire about you is that, you are working in the financial industry. You go away and
Yeah.
you're flying, in mission aviation, you're flying and helping
Right.
people directly. And now you're the president of a building firm. And
Right.
all of those seem very different, but if you've met they all have a through line.
Yeah. Right.
So why do you think people get so stuck in jobs and careers that aren't feeding them?
Yeah. I mean, a good question. I mean, I think in interacting with folks in that case, but yeah, obviously there's a lot of people in my life that are in that phase. I mean, I think there is this a self-doubt piece of that
Yeah.
that is very strong. And I know, we have a tendency to develop that. A lot of us do. And I think having, I think if I contrast it to say, why do I not think that way? What I would point to is the people that have like had all this belief in me when I had seemingly no results,
Right. Yeah.
Where, it's like, okay, well, it's like, oh, but I had, like two or three people in particular that like spoke a lot of affirmation in my life when I was in those formative stages, um, in high school and college, where it's like, what you can go do a lot of different things. I think that you can go do anything in your world is maybe not the most helpful for people.
Yeah. Right.
But it's like, here, I see a lot of potential in you, and I'm intentionally investing in you because I think of what you could be. If people have not had that kind of influence in their life, that and I think if I didn't have that kind of influence in my life, then why would I believe that I could do all this stuff?
Good point.
Like, and so really being able to speak into, and that's something I now try and do in the interactions I have with, we hire a lot of younger employees and stuff, and it's like, hey, you could go be a superintendent for us. You're coming in as a laborer, but
Yeah.
there's nothing in your way. Like you have the characteristics, to do that if you want to. And, we want to invest in you in that way if that's something you're interested in. And so just speaking that into people, even, I recently had to let somebody go, and they were having just issues showing up and, kind of,
Yeah.
just a lot of challenges in their life. And I was like, I have to have somebody more reliable. I hate to do this, but I have to let you go because I have to hire somebody else. And he came by the other day and he's like, just checking in, wanted to catch up on
That's
stuff.
great.
And my son was like, "Didn't you fire him, Dad?" I was like, well, yeah, but like I really didn't want to. And
Yeah.
like that, and that was like deeply genuine because I would try and speak that over him all the time. Like, dude, like you're one of our best people. When you're on, you're like, I love having you on our team and what the way you deliver our customers. I love all of that, but you got to be here. And, but kind of trying to continue to speak into what he could be. I just think there needs to be more and more of that in
Yeah,
this world in
man, I couldn't
general.
agree that more. Like, that's
Just
probably,
more affirmation and really speaking over futures for people.
yeah. I mean, making positive change really does start with what's right in front of you and what's closest to
Yeah.
you. And like, I can't agree with that more because I've been, running this company for 29 years or so.
Hmm.
And I used to really be into the accolades. We got a bunch of awards. I felt like a big
Yeah.
deal, and now,
Hmm.
especially the last 10 years, seeing somebody that comes here and then grows exponentially and is encouraged because we encourage them, and all of a sudden their career takes off and they're learning
Yeah.
new things and taking on new things. Man, that just like fires me up. I love
Yeah.
helping people grow.
Yeah. 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 So I think that is a big piece of it. And so, that being able to get over kind of that self-doubt or like, I don't think I really can
Yeah.
do that. I think it does hold a lot of people back. And it's just the fear of the unknown, which I do think, I don't know if there's something genetic about that, but it's like,
Yeah.
I've never had much of that. It's like, okay,
Right.
yeah, I'm gonna go do this, and like, okay, and my wife will be like, well, what if it doesn't work out? I'm like, well, we'll deal with that when it doesn't work
Yeah.
out.
Some will work out. Yeah.
but, I think that kind of tendency towards safe, which I talk to other entrepreneurs, other people that are starting business and kind of go out on their own. They're like, it's not saying that fear doesn't exist. It's just how much weight do I give it?
Yeah.
And that I think that does hold. I think that a lot of people, a lot more people than do, should start their own thing
Yeah.
and work for themselves. And I think they'll be invigorated in ways that they didn't even think were possible. But you have to have that person that kind of helps, I think, kind of
Yeah.
nudge you
Yeah. If you
in that
didn't get
direction.
that growing up or it's not built into who you are,
Yeah.
sometimes I take it for granted because I started my own business when I was 13,
Yeah. Right.
and
Yeah.
then
Right.
after that, I started another one and I just always, and
Yeah.
several of them didn't work out and some of them were
Yeah.
terrible
That's right.
ideas, but it didn't
Yeah.
discourage me. I just kept going,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's, you forget it's really a joy to see people start something of their own too, or
Hmm.
expand on their skills and
Yeah.
bring it to a new role even,
Yeah.
So I think that's
That's awesome.
great. I was going to ask you, like, I know you're very values driven. You're the president of Legacy Builders now,
Right.
and so the other day you and I got to talk, and I know one of the things that really struck me is on the way out, you and I got to have some lunch, and it was freezing cold and you were thinking of stopping by to get your workers some hot chocolate or do something.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
feel like that's the kind of thing that if a leader's thinking of that
Mm.
your values aren't on a wall. They aren't like a
Mm.
mission statement. You're actually in a very human way, leading and caring about the
Mm.
people that work with you. So how is what you did, with mission aviation and all the things you've done,
Yeah.
working for you now? How did you bring that back into the role you're doing now?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, is my career, that's something that's really developed because, I would say at the beginning of my career, I saw employees as, like quote unquote tools to accomplish the work, right?
Yep.
And so it's like, okay, it's more about production. And, as we talked about earlier, just my growing and understanding about life and work is primarily about relationships, and everything is secondary to that. And so, like in particular, when I know our guys have been working out it was,
Yeah.
10-degree weather for a couple days in a row, and just like, it's hard to stay motivated.
Hmm.
And so it's like, just raising my awareness to what they're feeling, not just what they're getting done, if that makes sense.
No.
And taking those moments to really assess um, who their whole being, not just the production part of them. That's when those things come to mind. It's like, oh yeah, I bet, they're cold.
Yeah.
There's
They're working
one
hard.
way we can do this, and unfortunately I can't just say like, hey, we'll just go home and we'll pay you, to be warm,
Right.
but how do I recognize the reality of the situation, show them that I do care about them and value them, and still continue to, get production, quote unquote, because, we do have to pay bills and
Right.
and those kinds of things. And so, yeah, that just, I guess I've grown in just my awareness of the humanity
Yeah.
uh, part of employees, which I think has been deeply meaningful for me. And I also I get much more enjoyment out of the work now
I bet.
because I'm doing it with a bunch of people for a common purpose instead of kind of trying to maximize production for the purpose. If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
And I think, as a leader, I wish more leaders were like that, honestly, because, I talked to other presidents of, larger companies, vice presidents of smaller ones, all kinds of leaders on this podcast and otherwise in life and work.
Yeah.
And the ones that look at it like what you just described, you're really being nurturing and empathic
Mhm.
to your employees. And people are not cogs
Yeah.
in
That's
us,
right.
you know what I mean? And as soon as you see them as people, I think what happens is seeing people as people and treating them that way and making meaningful gestures or even small gestures and saying thank you. And some of the
Mhm.
things that a lot of leaders skip.
Yeah.
I think I think that sets a tone and builds a culture around serving each other. And if it's not going to
Yeah.
start at the top, where is it going to start?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, no, you're right on. And yeah, and I find that that builds the connection that makes people also want to put in more effort.
Yeah,
You know, if I know that my guys are working hard out there, it wants me to work harder at my job,
right.
because it's like, hey, they're putting the effort and like doing it in a way that we want it done. And so like I got to hold up mine to the bar, like they're pushing me and hopefully, I'm pushing them in a way too. Which yeah, it's just because everybody wants to go home and feel like they did a good thing
Yeah,
during
right.
the day and that they put in good effort and got rewarded for that effort. And so if we can create an environment where everybody's in the most positive way possible, pushing each other to do more, to do it in closer aligned to our values, I think that everybody then goes home feeling better about what they contributed
Yeah.
during the day, and that changes the way that then they care about their family at home and the other parts of their life they're associated with, church associations. Like if they feel more that they're adding more value into the world than they're getting out of it, like it just makes them want to do more. And I just I think that goes way beyond business and brand and all those things. When we have really fulfilled um, driven people in our communities, and driven not in a way of getting more stuff done, but driven like purpose driven,
Yeah.
um, then that changes kids' sports teams, that changes our school systems, that changes our churches, all those things. And so, that's what I hope people who work for me. I hope that that's what they're getting out of it, not just a paycheck, but a bit more purpose and sense of value of themselves in the world.
Yeah. I think that is so important and unfortunately overlooked in American business. And
Yeah.
I really appreciate that about you and what you bring. Even when I worked with you years ago at DCCU, I always had that sense working with you. You're always trying to, you know, connect with others and have a sense of community and encourage people to do
Mm-hmm.
their best. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that when it's not a slogan, when people know that it's real because they
Yeah.
experience it, you get a different kind of performance and it is contagious into lives and communities
Yeah.
where if you make someone feel that they're, you know, expendable
Mm-hmm.
and they're just a piece of a machine, I think that's
Yeah.
contagious
Right.
as well,
Absolutely. Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
So I love that about how you treat others and how you work. So I have no doubt that Legacy Builders will continue
Mm-hmm.
to grow and
Yeah.
be a really positive force for the people that work there and anyone
Yeah.
around you guys,
Yeah. That's what we hope.
because it's a really cool thing you're doing. So, let me ask you a question. If you look, a few years ahead, because you've done so many
Mm.
different things in the last, like what, 10, 15 years?
Yeah. Right.
So what do you think, if you look like, maybe 5 years ahead, what do you want for yourself and what you're doing in the world?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think about that a lot. I mean, I'm very, yeah, goal oriented kind of,
Yeah.
individual. I like to write stuff down that, kind of dreams or thoughts that come to mind. And I want to continue to grow, build companies. My life says, yeah, she says, you just like to play business, and so it's like there's a bit of that. Like and part of that's because I feel like my most value to the world is to help start and grow meaningful
Yeah.
companies that add value to people's lives, and that's why I started Legacy. Is because I saw a gap in the commercial construction space, and I wanted to fill it in the way that I wanted to fill it, with my partners, and so I'm very open to other opportunities once we kind of get this thing continued to go down the road. And I love to equip other leaders and help them grow. And so, my one of my business partners there is really running the day-to-day operations of the company. And so I serve as a bit of an advisor to him and kind of the sounding board. Like I can, at this point in my career now, like there's very few situations that I run into where it's like I haven't had something I can relate it to.
Yeah.
And so I want that to be value add to others as they're going through those things. And so being able to start and grow companies is I think what my call is for the next several years, and what that looks like. And I mean, there's this huge transfer of small businesses going on in this country,
Yeah, there is.
because of the boomers retiring out, and a lot of those next generations are not wanting to step into that for one reason or another, and so I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for people that want to be business owners
Yeah.
to buy in businesses that are already cash flowing and are successful and have been around for a while. And so I look at that as really exciting opportunity that I want to help be a part of, helping other people do that, and folks that maybe would say like, oh, I don't think I can do it, but I know they can because I know
Right.
who they are, to help kind of nudge them into that and helping them either, through the capital side part of it or the just the practical day to day leadership side of it. I foresee being a part of that for part of my story for the next 5 to 10 years for
Man,
sure.
I think that's a great journey for you to be on, because having worked closely with you and, seeing how you operate, I think your personality and your ability to see issues with compassion and help people
Mm,
fix things, not out of like some driver that's all about you. You really,
yeah,
you
right.
really do have other people's best interests in mind. And I think, in whether that's you building a company directly or helping someone else build one, I think you'd be a credit to any organization doing that. And
Yeah, I appreciate
so I think it's going to be really fun to see whatever you do next,
it.
because everything
Yeah,
I'm a fan. And
yeah,
that's one of the things I love about marketing, is that I feel like, I don't know, there's a lot of marketing that's about, I don't know what it's about. Like, it's like fast, flashy,
yeah,
make a splash, and it's nonsense.
right.
Like, when you're really
Hmm.
marketing a company, it's about, finding out what people authentically connect with
Mm,
and then
hmm.
highlighting that. And that's one of the
Right.
things I love about what we do, because we end up being able to help companies with great people in the company, and we get to help them grow. Like, that's
Hmm.
such a motivator for me, is when you see a company that you care about start to grow because you helped them with your expertise. Man, what a great feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. To be able to sit kind of on the side
Yeah.
and be able to see that happen is a pretty cool thing, and I embrace that more and more. Yeah, I don't need to necessarily be the one doing the thing
Right.
all the
Yeah.
time, but to see others be able to do it in really meaningful ways is impactful.
Yeah. It's really energizing. Let me ask you a couple final questions, and I'll let you go, because I know you probably have a million
Sure.
things to do. This has been a blast of a conversation for me, man. This has been
Yeah,
really
no,
great.
I appreciate it.
So right now, what would you call this chapter of your life right now?
Yeah, I would call it the investing chapter. Like that's the word that comes up a lot in my mind. So yeah, investing. in obviously starting and kind of getting a company off the ground, investing in the other business I'm a part of. We're doing deep investment in the structures and systems that I think will sustain it for the next 10 to 15 years, and investing in my family. You know, I've got three boys, 16, 13, 11. Like, this is my window to be able to invest in them. You
Right.
know, my 16-year-old in a couple of years, he's going to be out in the world, you know, kind of doing his thing. And so this is my time to invest in him. So yeah, so that's what I would call it.
And that's a great place to be, you know, it really is. And I think
Mhm.
you're obviously having a really positive impact on all the places that you are helping and all the people that you're investing in right now. So final question I always like to end on this one with guests is, now sitting here where you are today, what advice would you
Mhm.
give to your younger self?
Yeah, I would tell myself embrace the process. And I found that life is much more about the process than the finished product. And sometimes I would try and skip through the process as quick as possible to get to the finished product.
Yeah.
And I feel like early on in my career, especially, I missed out on the value of embracing the process. So I would tell myself embrace the process.
I love that. And it's kind of like, I know you ride motorcycles and I rode motorcycles for years.
Right.
It's like I would sometimes go on rides with guys that was all about getting there. And if there's
Yep.
any place
hmm
that's about the journey, it's on a
Yeah, that's right.
motorcycle where it is actually about the process of getting there. It's not about getting
Exactly.
there,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. No, that's a great analogy. Yep.
I
Yep.
I feel like when you miss that, you're missing the entire point of a motorcycle ride.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Right. No, you're right on. It's great. That's a great way to put it.
So I think that's great. I mean, what a great thing to. So if any young leaders are listening or anyone out there, I think a lot of us struggle when we're in the process of something, whether it's a process of
Mm.
change or
Yeah.
building something like you are right now. And we keep, I don't, you know, we've touched on this a couple of times. Like, goals are great. A
hmm
destination, and you think, you know, like once you get to this goal, it's going to be amazing. But it's usually the process where all the value is.
That's right. Yep. Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Well, man, thanks so much for being a guest on the podcast today. It was an absolute blast to have you on.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. Thanks for the work you're doing.
Want to hear more inspiring stories? Subscribe on your preferred podcast app so you don't miss an episode. And if you like what we're doing, please rate, review, and share. It's the best way to support us. Thank you for listening to Brand Story.